You are listening to the Billy Dees podcast. We are waiting just a minute for everyone to engage the live stream. Remember, you can find the Billy Dees podcast on your favorite platform.
All right. Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to our live stream on X. We always wait just a moment for everybody to have a chance to lock on to the live stream, because a lot of times people have to refresh their browser or reset their app or what have you. With me is Cynthia Elliott. Hello, Cynthia.
Hello, Billy. Good to see you.
She's on the road today. We'll talk about that in just a moment. But here again, I think our moment has passed. I'm going to go ahead and start the podcast. So here we go. All right. Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to the program. If you are new here, first of all, I'm absolutely thrilled that you are here. We are primarily an interview and a commentary-based podcast. We go live with commentary on Thursday evenings. With me for that program is Cynthia Elliott. Hello, Cynthia. How are you?
Hi, Billy. Good to see you. Looking forward to this episode. You know, a lot of spicy stuff going on in the media these days. Lots to talk about.
Lots of spicy stuff, that is for sure. Cynthia is on the road today. So for those of you watching the live stream, she's in a different environment. For those of you listening to the audio podcast, she might sound a little different. She doesn't have her audio studio all together. But what are you doing? What is this? What are you doing?
I spent the last couple of hours setting up. I'm doing a retreat this weekend, a GTFU glow up retreat for people who are ready for some transformation. And we just finished, making the space lovely and warm and divine for people to come take their shoes off and enjoy getting in touch with themselves again. So I'm excited. I'll be busy all weekend doing that.
Well, that is fantastic. That sounds very interesting. Okay, a lot going on right now. We always talk about current events, and lately politics has dominated that. One of the things that I really wanted to talk about today is the media. And then we're going to talk a little bit about branding, because that's something I've talked about in relation to RFK Jr., which we can talk about today as well, but most specifically in regard to Kamala Harris. Okay, let's start with me ranting on the media. All right. Because I got to tell you, this is as bad as it's ever been. And I'm going to put for those of you watching the live stream, I'm going to put a CBS post that they did on X. And for the audio audience and for the streaming audience, I'm just going to read it. This is what CBS says. And I'm going to after I read this quote, I'm going to play a video clip, come back, and I'm going to read this clip again. Okay. This was the CBS headline. Donald Trump launched a racially insensitive attack against Kamala Harris on Wednesday, questioning her racial background in a contentious appearance in Chicago. Trump said his opponent for the White House, quote unquote, happened to turn black a number of years ago. Now, that's the quote. That is how Trump was presented by CBS News and this incident. All right. Now, here again, the pluses and minuses of this incident and how you want to debate it is another thing entirely. But I'm talking in regard to how this was presented. Before I play the clip, I don't like long, lengthy clips. So let me preface this by saying that during this interview on stage, Donald Trump was pressed on DEI. He asked for a definition. The interviewer responded, well, it's diversity, include whatever it is. Diversity,
inclusion.
Yeah. That's what it is. Okay. Diversity, equity, and inclusion. There, I got it. Okay. Hooray for me, right? That's what it was. So anyway, that's not really a definition. Okay. She stated that back. Diversity, equity, and inclusion. That's not a definition. He was asking for a definition in terms of how is it applied? How is it applied in this case? What is she asking about? What she was asking about was Kamala chosen? Do you believe Kamala was chosen as a DEI choice? And he wanted to know, and what's the process of that? And she wouldn't answer. She just kept going on with this DEI. Okay. And so after she again put a finer point on it and specifically asked about race being involved in this decision. Now, after he was pressed on it, after he tried to avoid the question, he answered as best he could. And here again, this is where the CBS quote comes in. So, with that CBS quote in your mind, let's go ahead and take a little view of that video. And it's going to take me just a second. I am not together today. Okay, here we go. Here is that a small piece of that exchange, and then I'm going to follow up in the clip with some other opinions. Here we go.
I believe that Vice President Kamala Harris is only on the ticket because she is a black woman.
Well, I can say no. I think it's maybe a little bit different. So I've known her a long time indirectly, not directly very much, and she was always of Indian heritage, and she was only promoting Indian heritage. I didn't know she was black until a number of years ago when she happened to turn black, and now she wants to be known as black. So I don't know, is she Indian or is she black?
She is always identified as a black woman. She went to a historically black college.
I respect either one, but she obviously doesn't, because she was Indian all the way, and then all of a sudden she made a turn and she became a black person.
Just to be clear, sir, do you believe that she is...
I think somebody should look into that too when you ask.
Is an Indian recipe.
Yes.
Because
yes.
you are Indian.
Yes, yes.
Okay, and I don't know that everybody knows that, but I find that wherever I go and I see Indian people at the supermarket, on the street, everyone's like, you know, Kamala Harris is Indian, right? It's like the thing we're so excited about.
Black.
She is always identified as a black woman. She went to a historically black college.
Who raised me and my sister was a proud woman. She was a brown woman. She was a woman with a heavy accent.
And her mother, Shamla Gopalan, was also the biggest influence in Kamala Harris's life.
Black.
She is always identified as a black woman. She went to a historically black college.
Yeah, so look, on a very personal level, my parents were immigrants to this country, legal immigrants from southern India. Very same part of India that her mother also immigrated from. I think it's a hard fact, Martha, it's just a fact, whether you like it or not, that many Indian Americans in the United States are indeed somewhat offended by the way Kamala has suddenly cast aside the Indian American side of her identity. She leaned into it when she ran for office in California. Big Asian American and Indian American population. So she wore that when it was convenient. She's wearing a different identity now when it's politically convenient on a national stage. Personally, I don't think we should be relying on these ethnic identities at all. We're actually American. And the problem is when you're Kamala Harris and you actually do lean into your identity politics, then you open the door to that type of criticism. But if you ask me, that shouldn't be how this election is decided one way or another. It should be decided on our own identity as Americans and what our vision is for the future of the country. And the number one thing missing in Kamala Harris's candidacy is that she lacks that vision for the country. That's what we got to focus on.
All right, very good. Well said by Vivek Ramaswamy there.
Yeah.
Very well said. I couldn't agree more. And here again, my point in all this is that he was pressed first to respond to the DEI, then pressed specifically on her ethnicity to answer. He answers, and then everybody says, oh, look how terrible it is that he brought up race. Now, here again, I am going to bring up, and I am going to read again this before and after. Donald Trump launched into a racially insensitive attack against Kamala Harris on Wednesday, questioning her racial background in a contentious appearance in Chicago. Trump said his opponent for the White House happened to turn black a number of years ago. Okay. Now, I want to ask you, Shaman, did you perceive an attack there?
No. You know, the whole thing with that, the interview was actually quite good. And I think a lot of people in the room really liked him. She was baiting him and trying to set him up for an answer because he tends to say what he really thinks. And it's not the first time that he has brought this to light. The fact is, a ton of people on X and TikTok are talking about the fact that she identified as Indian for a very long time. And then when it became convenient for her career, she started to identify and point out the black, and the Indian side of her has been left to the side. That's true. What Vivek is saying, what Donald Trump did was try to, as delicately as possible, answer a loaded question that was being intentionally asked with anger in the woman. And I don't know who the woman is, but I know when I smell anger and agenda in the way someone is approaching a political candidate. And she was trying to get him to say something that she could then spin this way. It was almost like the media, like the CBSs of the world, already had this ready to go because they knew the question would be asked and the positioning was going to be the positioning no matter what he said.
Yeah. Um, this speaks to my disappointment in institutions. And here again, it's how CBS presented this and other ones too. I'm just having to pick on CBS
Yeah.
because I ran across that headline, which I thought was particularly crazy, for
Yeah.
lack of a better term. And I've talked before about how disappointed I am in Boeing. And I'm not going to get into all that again, but how that company represented innovation and taking chances and or transforming the world, transforming transportation. And now they've fallen to, the same old kind of thing that you see on Wall Street all the time. That's what they've been reduced to. And here we are with CBS. At once, the Columbia Broadcasting System was the premier journalist broadcast company, both on radio and in TV. Prior to the days of radio being prominent in news, you got to keep in mind during the 1950s, television was primarily entertainment. The real news was on the radio. And of course, the JFK assassination in 1963 really changed that because Americans were glued to their TVs for that weekend. But prior to that, the real quote unquote journalists were on radio. And the Columbia Broadcasting System has a lineage with some of the most significant historical events that this country has ever had.
Mm-hmm.
And then when TV started to become prominent during the 1960s, you had the Walter Cronkite era. And Walter Cronkite had his quirks too, but for the most part, he told it like it was. He very famously would not announce the death of JFK when all that information was coming in until he goes, it's not more important to be first, it's more important to be correct. And those days are gone.
Oh,
Okay.
They don't give a crap. And that's one of the things the internet ushered in. It ushered in a level of competition and a level of incompetence because the number of people competing for the attention of the American people or global population increased dramatically. And it became an all-out war of clicks and views. And they care more about getting you to pay attention and click on something than they care about being accurate. The whole field of journalism has been decimated by this desperate chase to scare people into coming back into continuing to watch. They've used fear for years now.
Yeah.
To get people to continue to watch, and journalism has gone by the way of it's become opinion based. That's what that is. That post from CBS is an opinion post. It is
absolutely
not.
No. It there's way too much hyperbole in there.
Yeah.
Way too much. I mean, I would have characterized it as Trump at an event, sparred with the hosts, blah blah blah. And here's the layout of the thing. But they clearly skewed this so that they know that most people only read the headline. Most people only read the tweet.
Yeah.
If you're on X, or which in my opinion, thank God for Elon Musk. That's all I got to say. Kudos to Elon Musk. Thank God for him. But social media in general, they know for a fact, just like with headlines in a newspaper, most people do not read the article. They just read the headline. So,
and the headlines are often not written by the person who wrote the article in the first place. They're written by somebody whose job it is to use previous headlines that have gotten a lot of clicks to position a story, whether it factually reflects the story or not.
Yep.
To get the click. Same thing with social media. It's often written by people who aren't journalists.
Oh, sure. Absolutely. And they rely on knowing that people, as they're scrolling through their timeline, they see this Donald Trump launch this racially insensitive attack. Oh, yeah, well, that's who he is. That's the impression. They've won. They've won right there. Before the first sentence is even finished, they have accomplished their goal, which is to color, taint,
demonize
a candidate just for on strictly emotion. and characterize an event the way they want it to be characterized. And here again, he was bullied into answering that question to begin with.
And
there was no attack that was launched. Go ahead.
This kind of behavior is not used when aiming the same pen or keyboard at the Democratic side. That's what shows the American people and people all over the world how agendized media have become, because their behavior with people they don't agree with and don't like is completely different than their behavior. Their inability. I still talked about this yesterday on a live. The way the whole Kamala Harris thing has unfolded, how her unpopularity, her disengagement from anything that really matters to anybody, the fact that she was the border czar, the fact that she has changed the way she spun her history, depending on who the listener was over the years. All of that's just been erased in a matter of it has blown my mind how quickly a huge majority of the woke media has spun around to celebrate her as though she's some kind of superhero, when she's basically been absent from politics for the most part, and fully aware that the president of the country was incapacitated, and she was a part of a cover-up that has been going on for a couple of years, so that whoever is actually running this country, because I don't believe it's either one of them, could keep doing what they wanted to. And now, because they want to maintain that power base, they're putting another puppet in there. I mean, you cannot describe Biden as anything other than a puppet once you really get a sense of just how disconnected he is. And her behavior speaks to that of somebody who's been a political puppet for years. She wasn't even liked nor popular, nor did she get any votes when she was trying to run. And all of a sudden, all of that's been forgotten by a huge segment of the media that cares less about being honest and reporting both sides of the issue, the truth from history, going back and actually doing their research. And they're just changing the whole narrative around her to stuff her down everybody's throats because they want her to win. And that's really terrible. And the fact is, I think they're actually upsetting a lot of the Black Democratic members who see it for what it is. It's insulting. It's really insulting to people, especially to play the race card and try to encourage people to vote for something by spinning lies. Like, it's insulting to me, to a lot of my African-American friends.
Sure. I totally agree with that. And here again, this chameleon aspect is where the issue lies. And this is not exclusive to her. Joe Biden does the same thing. And here again, he gets a pass on it. He'll speak to a bunch of truckers and he'd say, well, back in the day, I drove a truck. And when he's talking to, airline pilots, well, back in the day, I used to fly a plane. And when he's talking to people from Minnesota, I spent time in Minnesota. Then he's talking to a Italian-American festival. Oh, yeah, well, I was raised by Italians. It's this whole thing. And he always got a pass on it. Oh, nothing to see. Everything's fine.
These are the same media that had to know that there was something wrong with him. Come on. How did they not know? We knew.
Yeah.
And we're not sitting in meetings where there's a bunch of other journalists who can talk about the truth.
Yeah. So this chameleon aspect is, and this inauthenticness, I guess is a good way to put it, is what the issue is. It's not necessarily her race or authenticity. It's the idea that she'll mold herself into whatever is most politically expedient. Now, speaking of which, as far as I know, Kamala Harris has not given a free, open interview or like a press conference since Joe Biden was taken out of the loop on the election. Is that, don't you find that odd?
Sure, yeah. And I think they try to keep her away from microphones, especially right now, because what they're doing is they're letting the liberal media, which the majority of them are, carry her as high and as far as they can and generate as much money for her, which frankly, I think more exposure to her is not actually going to help.
Yeah. I think what they're doing is they're going to build her up as high as possible because they know at some point she's going to fall. And that's not just because of Kamala. Anytime there's a change, that there's a spike. So, you have, people changing on the ticket. There's going to be a spike. You have a convention. There's going to be a spike. So right now, with the attention newly focused on Kamala, since Joe Biden says he wasn't going to run, they're going to throw as much spit and polish on her as they possibly can. They're going to change her wardrobe. They're going to change her hairstyle. They're going to do this, that, and the other thing. And I would bet behind the scenes, they're putting her basically in situations where she's just getting pummeled with information. She's being asked to repeat things over and over and over again so that her answers become automatic, so that it becomes muscle memory to handle these situations, so she comes off as best as possible when they're finally going to have to put her out in front of people in an impromptu situation. That's what's happening.
They're going to control as much of that as they learned with Joe Biden. They've had years of practice controlling what the American people can see and what questions can be asked. Look what happened with the debate. I mean, they spent months controlling that to get Joe Biden to look as good as possible. So I don't know. I think what we need is more exposure to what she's really about. And, I don't hate anybody. I don't have the energy for it. I just think she's an idiot.
Yeah.
And it's insulting to me as a woman who's a Gen Xer, who's seen a lot of really brilliant women not get these opportunities because they weren't willing to do the same things to get the same opportunities, like be a chameleon that is inauthentic. And secondly, when is she going to talk about policy? Because I want a president that actually gives about the country and actually understands what people are going through, that doesn't just get up on stage and get some people to dance. And it's like people need help right now. The country's really in a serious position. We're really in a very, very serious time, and we need strong leadership that understands the issues, not Barbie doll prancers who pretend to be whatever is convenient to get votes, especially ones being controlled by somebody else. Because I will never believe that she is not the end of some set of strings that somebody is pulling.
Yeah. So that's what's happening. And I think the rebranding, let's call it, the image modification on Kamala is a little bit more than obvious smoke and mirrors. I mean, everybody gets spit and polish at one point, but they are quite literally creating a being that does not exist with her. And the imaging here, like you've pointed out since the announcement about Joe Biden, has been very noticeable. If you don't recognize an active, coordinated thing among the certain branches of the media and the DNC to remold this person into something that she's not, then you're simply not objective. Now, you might still vote for her because you want to vote for her, or you just hate Trump that much, and that's fine. That's your choice. But you have to recognize that this is like being born again. Yeah, she's being politically born again right now. And you know what I say about people who are born again? They're twice as bad the second time around. Okay. With that, I'll get a lot of hate for that.
Yeah, that's okay. I'm sure I will for sorry, I went so opinion based. I criticize media for not doing that, but I'm not officially media, and I'm giving my honest opinion.
Absolutely.
I find it insulting, and I'm really hoping that the election goes in a different direction.
Yeah. She's the subject of too much branding. I think that Trump, for the most part, has a pretty good brand with his red, white, and blue, pro-America, make America great and all that. RFK Jr. Still doesn't have that wow factor. And it's not because of him. I know the RFK supporters that listen to this program get real upset when I say that. I'm not saying about him. I'm talking about brand image. Yeah. Right now, Kamala is being fashioned into the younger, hip, pro-woman image. That is going to be her brand. She is going to have a hip hairstyle. She's going to have a power suit. She's going to be, have a lot of spring to her step because she's young compared to Trump. And this is going to be, the new generation of leadership. That is what the Democrats are molding her into right now. And all I'm saying for the RFK Jr. people is you need that brand. You need that just do it. You need that message.
Yeah, his platform has been he's covering too many issues. And I get that
in detail.
The problem is he's being attacked by both the liberals and the Republicans. So it's kind of stuck him constantly in defense mode. But he needs a strong brand, a strong platform.
Yeah. And quite frankly, RFK has not been treated well by the media at all.
No,
They branded him as a nutcase. They branded him as an anti-vaxxer, which is untrue. He didn't like the COVID-19 vaccine because it wasn't really a vaccine. It was an mRNA program that gets injected into your body. So there's a lot of mistruths about RFK Jr. I would advise anybody to at least look at his, even if you're not going to change if you're dead set on voting for Trump, if you're dead set on voting for the Democrats, it's not official yet that Kamala is the candidate, although it seems like it's been preordained at this point.
Yeah.
But go ahead and check out RFK Jr. I think he belongs on the debate stage. What do you think?
Oh, I do too. I would love to have him there. I think he would add a real spice to it, give somebody Trump somebody to spar with. I do wonder if it will allow, Kamala to sort of slippery slope right past the intensity of what she needs. She needs the spotlight thrown on her and to speak extemporaneously on important topics so we can see if she can actually wrap her head around the important issues.
Yes, seeing her contrast with RFK Jr., that would be good, because RFK Jr. has some very well thought out policies. And as a matter of fact, he's leaning on that aspect of his campaign too much because, yes, his avid supporters, that's what they like about him. But for somebody who's checking candidates out, you got to have that brand appeal first. It's just like sex appeal. You got to be attracted first before you find out what kind of movies she likes. All right. The same thing goes with a candidate. You have to have a certain level of attraction. This is what pops out at you. And that's what that campaign has been lacking. Yeah. Speaking of branding, I know this is your wheelhouse. First of all, I will say this about Biden before we get off the Biden-Harris thing. I'm very nervous about Supreme Court changes. However, and this is a big however, I've heard talk about term limits. And I think term limits should not only be on the Supreme Court, but they should be in the Congress and the Senate as well. Mm-hmm. I heard 18 years or something like that. Don't quote me on that, but it's a fair amount of time. I don't think that's a bad idea because there's no reason these Supreme Court justices need to be serving like the Pope until their last dying breath. Ruth Bader Ginsburg, she was on the table being embalmed and was still on the Supreme Court. Okay, Cynthia's cracking up over there.
I mean, come on, Dianne Feinstein. Like, it's too much. Nancy, what's her name? The Speaker of the Speaker of the House, former Speaker of the House. Like, they come on, just too old. Stop. Yes. And it allows them to accumulate far too much power and be bought off for far too long by special interest groups. So term limits for all of them.
Yes, I don't think that's a bad idea. Okay. Branding, the opening ceremonies of the Olympics often sets the tone. Mm-hmm. Do you remember the blue guy? I mean, I've had blue balls before, but not lately because I'm lucky to find any drop of testosterone in my body that I can find at my age. But there was a time when I did. But the blue ball guy.
Oh, come on. A lot of people think I'm a Republican because I give the Democrats and the woke mafia a hard time, but I'm actually quite liberal. And I believe I love all my gay friends, all my trans friends. Like, I do not judge, do not care. Stop inserting your political beliefs and your woke ideology into events that are supposed to be for everyone. That is what that was. That was not about the Olympics. It was not about love. It was not about leading with love. It was not about let's wrap our hands around the world. That was somebody who was agendized, inserting their political beliefs and their personal beliefs into a ceremony that was supposed to be for everyone. And that includes the people that you might insult with your behavior. These ceremonies are not about flashing your perception of what is right and wrong. It's about the celebration of life and humanity. And that felt like a flagrant woke agenda being shoved into a ceremony that is supposed to be about everybody on the planet.
Yeah.
That's what it felt like. And I don't give a crap what you do or how you dress or who you have sex with or
absolutely
what music you sing. What I care about is when you're trying to tell me and everybody else what to think, which is what that was about. It had nothing to do with the Olympics. And that's the problem with tapping someone to orchestrate a statement-making ceremony without having them check their politics at the door.
Well, it struck me too. I noticed it, and then I noticed that other people were mentioning it, that they had the Statue of Liberty with chunks out of it, with pieces falling out of the face and everything. Let's put this in a different context. Let's suppose that we did something and we had the Eiffel Tower pictured with pieces falling out of it, like it's about to fall over. What would be the reaction in France about that?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you get me on that. I found that to be a bit odd too. Now I'm sure there's somebody out there that's going to say, "Well, that isn't what they meant." Just like the comparisons to the Last Supper. I've heard people say,
Oh,
"Well,
come on. Like,
yeah,
come
I've heard."
on. Come on. There's no way when they were in rehearsals and that was going on that there weren't 15 people sitting there going, wow, it looks just like the Last Supper. I
Yeah,
don't care if you're trying to. It just, I don't believe for a second that's absolute BS. They
yes,
knew that it looked like the Last Supper. I don't care. Then they were like, no, we're just going to spin it as
yeah,
Dionysus. It's like,
yeah.
still
They
looks
were.
like the Last Supper.
Yes, it was. They said it was like, from mythology. Although you need to be educated. I don't need
No.
this line that everybody needs to be educated. When you pull out of something out of your ass, is starting to get a little tired to me. And the comparisons, not the comparisons, the similarities were pretty obvious. And then that isn't what it is. And here again, I've heard this mentioned before. Christians will put up with it. That is why they're the ones that always. There's other religions that you wouldn't dare characterize any religious symbolism in that way. If you did, you'd be hiding. So
Yeah. And that never happens by accident.
yeah. Okay. Just this footnote on the Olympics. This Angela Carini, the fighter who was injured by somebody who was apparently biologically a male. I don't know the details on that, so I'm not going to get into the details of it today. I want to research this a little better. I've heard some different things about the tests that are done in regard to testosterone and some other stuff. But that was the big scuttlebutt on the internet today. A lot of people were really outraged about her weeping into the cameras. She wanted to do this for her father. And she said she got hit so hard that she never would have been hit that hard before. And that really, to me, taking away someone's life's work, somebody who trained their entire life, certainly the last 4 years, just washing it away. And I want to be very clear. I'm a shaman on this. I am very much a proponent of letting people live the way they want to live. I don't believe anybody should be denied a job or treated badly or bullied or anything else based upon their sexual preferences, their sexual identity, or so on. But I've known a lot of people who do have what you might call an alternative lifestyle tell me privately that a lot of this bullshit that's going on now is hurting their cause.
And it
You know?
is. It is.
Yes.
It's being rammed down people's throats. The fact is, whether people want to look, there are a lot of things that women can do physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, whatever, that men can't do. There are a lot of things that men can do that a lot of women can't do because we are biologically different. Our arms are different lengths. We're capable of different types of impact because of the way that our bodies are aligned. It has nothing to do with talent or about anyone's belief in what a person should be allowed to do or not do. But if you're going to fight, it needs to be fair. And the reach of a man's arm is generally longer and they are generally more powerful. Now, women can do other things. It's not about competition in that way.
Yes.
And that whole idea that, we're going to do their testosterone. What the hell does that have to do with the fact that men and women are still biologically built differently?
Yes. 100%.
So putting him in the ring with her, whatever you want to call him, her, I do not care, was wrong.
Yeah.
It's wrong.
Yeah. Megyn Kelly said on her show today that they're not going to be happy until a woman gets killed. And I would go as far to say, I don't think it's going to stop even then. They're still going
and I'm going to say something that will piss people off. I think a lot of the people that are like this, that are inserting themselves into these venues, a lot of them hate women and can't compete with men. And so they're forcing themselves into positions where they can win and get a lot of attention in situations that they shouldn't be able to even win in the first place because they're physically different. And that may upset people, but it's the reason why it's leaving a bad taste in a lot of people's mouths. This is not necessarily true for everyone, but I have met enough people who have that kind of thinking that it is actually, it is one of the things that happens. It's like, I hate women. Let me just punt. I just don't understand it. I don't. It's not about being trans. I do not give a crap. Please
Yeah,
dress
and
however you want. Let's
yeah,
go have fun. I've been to many wonderful bars in New York City and had an incredible time. Birdcage is one
certainly.
of my favorite shows, but that has nothing to do with the fact that these are truths of why
Yes.
certain people choose to do certain things.
Yes, I've been to gay bars and things like that with friends and had an absolutely wonderful time. People are people when it comes right down to it. They just want to be loved and treated with respect. This isn't a hard thing. What's happening though in women's sports, they're using these very legitimate sympathies and empathy that we should have for people with gender identity, and they're using them to advance an agenda that is harmful in a lot of cases. Like you hear these stories about women getting their teeth knocked out and all these other things. I can't imagine what does that have to do with being understanding and welcoming to people. I don't. They're contorting that.
Yeah, it's a contortion, which is why I said it's toxic ultimately.
Yes,
It's not rooted in fact. It's rooted
yes.
in the ability to twist someone's thinking.
Yes, and the ability to step on facts here again is in this situation here, with biological men in women's sports. This stepping on truth. We step on truth with Joe Biden. We step on truth with a lot of other things. How we characterize different political candidates, and it's not just Trump that gets mischaracterized. I could go on and on with this, but the new thing now is that there's this is the oh no, this is how it is. We just keep repeating it. This is how it is. And facts don't matter anymore. Real facts don't matter.
Mhm.
People's realities, not people's opinions, have now taken precedence over how we most basic and objectively evaluate situations. That's not, we don't do that anymore. We decide on the reality that we want, and that's it. That's the reality. And if you go against that, you're not educated. You haven't done your research. You're a hater. You're a this. You're a that. And common sense has gone out the window. It has absolutely gone out the window. They're going through that in Britain right now with that stabbing. Here again, that's too complicated to get into in the last minutes of our program here. But there's been a new awakening, from what I can understand, in the media in Britain over this rash of stabbings that they've had.
Yeah.
So, it's crazy times, that's for sure. Cynthia, I know you have a lot going on. Do you want to talk a little bit about what all you got going on there? And I'll
Oh
tell you,
yeah. Oh,
I'll even give you the full screen. You go
oh my
right
God, you're so funny, Billy.
ahead.
Before I forget, I did see that you posted that you'd gotten the Emergency Assistance Plus.
Yeah.
I travel a lot, and it covers me for unexpected emergency travel expenses. So if you guys are traveling, seriously, you should go check out Emergency Assistance Plus because they've got some great programs. Anyway, I've got so much going on. So this weekend I'm doing a retreat. Go to shamanisis.com to check out events on August 21st. I've got an event at Newhouse Madison Square in New York City. I'm doing a talk about a new American dream. And then on September 8th, I'm doing the trial runs for my one-woman show, Raising Hell and Consciousness. The mission of all the work that I do is raising human consciousness. So I'll be sure and share more about that with you guys. But go to shamanisis.com and check it out. And if you want to follow me on social media, you can generally find me under @shamanisis.
That is absolutely fantastic. You always got a lot going on. I'm very entertained by your achievements and your escapades. Lots of fun. You can find me on X, which was at one time, not so long ago, called Twitter, at Billy Dees. Real easy to find on X. That's probably kind of like my social media home. Great place. I just love X. I love Elon Musk. And if you enjoy following trending events, I would very highly recommend that you give X a chance. It takes a little bit to get used to, like any social media platform, until you get in the swing of how it works. But I got to say, there's a lot of good stuff happening there. There's a lot of journalists that are making this their primary landing spot. Our show does very well on X. After we stream live on X and any number of other platforms, we also are on all the major podcast platforms. So whatever your favorite podcasting app is, however you like to listen. Billy Dees podcast is on them all. I don't know of any that we are not on. As a matter of fact, I'm very proud to say that Pandora is kind of hard to get on. We've been on that for a long time, and we do get a lot of listens on that. And that is not a platform that is known for podcasters. So we are just about everywhere. Do check us out. All right, Shaman, we will talk again real soon. As always, thank you so much for being with us tonight. Thank you. We'll talk to you again soon.
Thank you for listening to the Billy Dees podcast. Follow Billy Dees on X @BillyDees for updates about the program.